and go through what the newspapers have to say. To my immediate left is Professor Jacob Alhassan Hamidu. He is the Associate Professor at Department of Animal Science, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
And then next to him is Anthony Kusi, an economist, retired university lecturer, and a farmer. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you very much to both of you for joining us to throw your weight behind everything else we're doing. In the headlines this morning, we have yesterday the NDC meeting at the UPSA to our door. Once again, Professor Nana Jane Opoku Ajimai as the running mate to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. And then also we have other stories coming to you. Let's quickly run through them, and we'll also be looking at the Supreme Court's pronouncement on who can be a Chief Justice in the future. But we start with the Daily Graphic. Daily Graphic's front page says SML cleared to continue work, and that is on the back of the report received by His Excellency the President yesterday. Put that out so we all know. And following is the story of the outdooring of Professor Jane Nana Opoku Ajimai, who sent a certain direct message to the EC to be transparent, so Ghanaians will rally behind them. They can't be so independent to the extent of invalidating those who validated them. And then we also have next on the schedule will be the KPMG audit report. Finds tax revenue increases, SML cleared to continue work. That will also come to you. And then we'll also look at others. A President inaugurates second phase of 150 megawatt Kalio solar power plant. We also have salaries of first, second ladies unconstitutional. The Supreme Court pronounces. Well, now we have the Ghanaian Times. The Ghanaian Times dismissed pregnant student back to school. Dismissed pregnant student back to school. I found that quite a bit uncomfortable, especially dismissing her because she was pregnant. That really is one that I think every parent and everybody else would find very uncomfortable. We'll move on to the next paper, and the next paper is the Daily Guide with the banner headline Bawumia meets Pope Francis. He made a working visit to the Vatican and had the rarest opportunity in Ghanaian terms to meet His Holiness the Pope Francis at the Vatican, and it says a historic visit or Vatican visit. That is what Daily Guide says this morning on the front page. We move on to the next paper. Our next paper, let's look at the headline on the next paper is the Anchor. The Anchor also leads with Adamus accuses opponent of intimidation smear campaign, and then I will blackmail you if you publish my story. I will blackmail you if you publish my story. So let's come to my guests who are Professor Hamidu and Mr. Anthony. I will start with Professor Hamidu with the story where Professor Nana Jane Opoku Ajimai sends a sort of direct message to the EC asking the EC to be transparent. Will this be necessary at this time? What's your view?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on your show. I think we have an electoral body that is constitutionally demanded to be free and fair. And even though we may have our own interests or where we belong to, having a free and transparent electoral body in the country is an important step to making Ghana a beacon of democracy. And so everybody can make a call, and then the institutions should make the right effort to make sure that things are done much fairly and more and fair. And
is the EC not as fair as can be in your view?
Well, in my view, we may have our different views. There may be other situations where they've been fair, but there are other places that there have been issues or hitches.
Okay.
That may probably be due to logistics reasons. And so if somebody is calling for free and fair, you may have to reassess yourself to see where am I getting certain things wrong.
Sure.
And that is why maybe people are not seeing it to be that fair.
Right.
But I think for Ghana, we have been fair as much as possible to ourselves compared to other countries in the continent that I see.
I see.
And so we have done well.
I see. Let me move to Mr. Anthony. Mr. Anthony, would the call have made any difference if it had come from somebody else and not Professor James?
Well, number one, the call is very, very important. It calls on the EC to do some introspection.
Okay.
To assess what they've been doing, whether they themselves can mark themselves to some level. And then the call coming from Nana Opoku-Agyeman also indicates that she is a direct and a clear stakeholder in the activity of the EC.
Yeah.
She's a direct beneficiary should she win or something of the sort. But I think it's important that all Ghanaians should be on the neck of the EC. Because when the EC goes wrong, the whole country has gone wrong.
Wouldn't that also amount to suffocating the EC from carrying out their mandate?
Keeping them onto whatever has been assigned them, keeping them onto their mandate.
Okay.
There are instances where you can see the EC, sometimes you have to give people some time to do, they will just wait and then do it in a crash manner. That will not let the realization of the goal be attained.
Okay.
So I think it's important that constantly we call on them to get their acts right.
But there are those who hold the view that, well, the call could have been made from every and any other quarters, but coming from her and the choice of venue for that kind of call somehow makes it a bit extreme. There may amount also to putting pressure or suffocating the EC in that regard. Professor.
Yeah. Thank you again. I think it is not wrong for it to come from her. If you come to Ghana, it's more like the winner takes all. If you go to other, it is the case. And if you go to other countries, the opposition is even in parliament. And so they are able to make their contribution. So maybe we are getting to that point where the opposition is also regarded to be making input into the running of the country, and not necessarily the government in power.
Right.
The call coming from the opposition nominated vice, probably to think that government or the party in power has much influence. But there is the EC's position to make it clear or take steps that will make everybody see it to be purely free and fair.
Looking at the story, I found her focus and attention was more onto the EC withholding information in relations to the missing equipment. And she sort of thought to use that as the reason why it's even more important to open up. Don't you think by choosing that particular line, also she exposes herself to perhaps critiques who would say the EC must be allowed to carry out their mandate in a manner and in a way in which they deem fit and proper without any sort of political pressure? Mr. Anthony, come in.
Well, as I said earlier, I don't see the call as a pressure on the EC. It's rather calling the EC to action. And now, relating it to the missing equipment, I think it's important that the EC itself show some seriousness and tell the whole Ghanaian population.
You think the EC hasn't been serious?
To how I see it, they've not been serious enough.
Okay.
Because the equipment have been given to a department of your organization. People are in charge. Since you detected the missing equipment, what has been the steps you've taken?
Okay.
Those things must assure us that you are on top of each.
Well, they got those arrested.
They got them arrested. And then to what extent? They've been arrested. What is coming out of their arrest? Have they been able to trace?
For you, a running commentary on events, what is happening would serve well. Is that a view you hold?
Yes, that's a view I hold. Because you are in the public domain and you are doing certain things that for the interest of the public.
Okay.
And they must at every step know what we're doing.
Sure. Professor Hamidu, I realize you wanted to chip in at some point. Let's see what you have.
Yes, for me, as much as our individual views are very important, we should also let institutions work. And sometimes we shouldn't feel like only criticisms should be the way to get results. So the EC, for whatever they have done, they should also be given some credit for how far they have brought this country.
Okay.
And Ghana is a place that everybody wants to be, just that we need to straighten some few things. So I think sometimes certain issues are confidential, and it's not everything that we should just be able to make a comment on.
Okay.
So I think as much as we are calling for some accountability from the EC, sometimes it's not everything that you should want it to come into the public domain.
So for you, as much as possible, as far as the EC is concerned, in relation to exactly what we're talking about, there should be no problem whatsoever with any Ghanaian not knowing what they're doing.
Exactly. Because we haven't seen any information that has gone outside that affects anybody's well-being or anybody's winning election or anything. So I think calling for free and fair, but at some point, sometimes the calls are also sometimes extreme.
Well, I think that the Ghana's major opposition takes credit for even the public knowing about the missing equipment and whatever steps the EC has taken subsequently. They sort of take credit for it. Do you think this is worth taking credit for, Mr. Kusi?
I don't think it's worth taking credit for. It's a matter of just bringing the information to the notice of the public. You've done that.
Right.
And you do not go any other extra mile to extract the information. The thing has happened, and people were maybe trying to either hash it up or something, and then you expose it. That should end it. So there's no need for people to be taking credit for.
All right. Okay. No need to take credit for necessarily bringing out what information the EC would have put out anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Let's look at the next in line. The next subject or topic I want us to look at is the Supreme Court ruling on who can do what as far as Ghana is concerned. Many detractors have accused the Supreme Court of being a unanimous decision-making court, the apex court being a unanimous decision-making court. Indeed, the Supreme Court ruled on a matter very critical as to who can do what in this country. And so the decision is persons with dual citizenship can be appointed as chief justices, even directors of the VAT Commission. Let me bring that to you, Mr. Kusi. Do we have any reason whatsoever to worry who does what, especially when it comes to playing critical roles as chief justices?
Well, looking at the crucial and the critical nature of that particular office, people with dual allegiances may sometimes put the nation Ghana at some risk. And that the ruling that anybody can be the chief justice, I am not too comfortable with it.
Why wouldn't you be?
It should be a full-fledged Ghanaian with a single owning allegiance only to Ghana and not to any other country.
Okay.
But once you hold dual citizenship, it means that you hold dual allegiance.
Right.
And then we bestowing our security into your hands, it means that we are exposing ourselves to unwanted attacks.
Indeed, the argument, Prof, will be that if a member of parliament can't hold dual citizenship and represent the people of a constituency, how then is it so okay that the chief justice, the fourth in line, would have that benefit or that opportunity to be a citizenship of more than one country, yet hold the office of the chief justice?
Well, thank you. I think if you go to parliament, I don't think a parliamentarian has a lot of guiding principles, or there are any documents that really restrict a parliamentarian on the activities. And so restricting dual citizenship at that point, it's in the right direction. But when it comes to chief justice, the Constitution is the Bible or the compass that the Chief Justice should be able to pronounce judgment. And so the Chief Justice, being a dual citizen, I think it is more about being able to give us opportunities that we have not been able to explore in the past.
Right.
And so somebody who is holding a dual citizenship, before you even take up even those offices, you will have to swear an allegiance.
Yes.
You may have a dual citizenship somewhere, but you swear allegiance, you are there, confidentiality clauses, and you have to sign them. And when you breach them, that is where you are taking on.
Right. Mr. Kusi, do you think the Chief Justice, being a citizen of a different country or another country, may potentially expose the nation to some external threats?
I think so. I think so because if you're a Chief Justice, you're a Chief Justice in a particular jurisdiction.
Sure.
And then you owe allegiance to another jurisdiction. They may have their own sets of rules and laws that are operating there, and you are also bound by those laws, and here too, you are coming to adjudicate over our laws here. That is a clear case of where you expose us.
Well, let's look at the context of the story itself. It borders on Article 2892 of the 1992 Constitution, and the Supreme Lord or the Supreme Keeper of this Constitution is the Chief Justice. The interpretation and everything else is subject to his or her office, and being the one to adjudicate in matters of our Constitution, and then also being able to say, I belong to just more than this country. Prof, does that necessarily mean that the framers of our Constitution did not take deep consideration of the potential threat this may pose to us if ever that is allowed?
Well, to what extent is the Chief Justice involved with other countries when the person takes up a position? Those are the aspects that you have to explore as well. The draft of our Constitution, I think mostly we're learning from countries like the US and Canada, which allow for some of these dual citizenship.
Yes.
And if they are the masters that we are learning from them, and we have not seen threats about people taking offices where the dual citizenship is allowed.
But shouldn't we also take into account the number of years they have practiced this democracy we are learning? Ours is only what, a few years old?
We are about 60 years and they are about 300 years old.
They have practiced that over 200 years, and so have we availed ourselves to understanding the kind of injuries they suffered at the start of their practicing of this democracy we are learning to?
Well, in currently there are certain things that we can just copy. I believe we don't have to just go and reinvent the wheel, and this happens even in research.
But must we also not expose ourselves to suffering our own injuries as opposed to just copying?
Well, in fact, for us, a lot of issues have to do with behavior. It's not just about copying and implementing.
Okay.
But if your behavior sets are not that mature to be able to practice it well, that is where those injuries will occur. But if we are copying and we are copying their behavior set, like honesty and integrity and all of, I think there will be no issue.
Evidently we have not demonstrated that we're going to copy and implement as we see, but we then create our own version. Even though we copied, we then create our own version. Mr. Kusi, creating our own version, would that be the reason why we should not necessarily embrace that allowing of a dual citizen to hold the office if they are collecting revenue for us, if they are overseeing our prisons, if they are ensuring that justice is served properly? Must we have any reason to worry or hold any reservations?
We must hold reservations because, one, they are in a different economic setting.
Okay.
Our economies can never be compared to Canada or the US.
The US.
Institutional operations there are different.
Okay.
People are not cutting corners as we are seeing here. Look at our procurement processes. What goes on? This thing cannot go on in Canada or in America.
No.
So if you have a Chief Justice who holds dual allegiance, so present over a place where people can be cutting corners and here and there, then it rather expose the person to being influenced from different angles. So if he's truly committed to Ghana, then we should fight for Ghana.
Okay. And so you don't necessarily agree that a dual citizen should be allowed to become the Chief Justice?
Yes, that is my personal view.
Well, for me, why don't we trust ourselves? Why do we feel like, why do we always want to sit somewhere and think that that person will do that, which will be wrong? We can also trust our system and set, you see.
Well, we are in Malaysia. The accounts will say, if you're trivial,
it's true, but our proverbs sometimes if we don't take care, they set us to fail. But I'm writing some Anansi stories, and I'm really teasing out the lessons that we learn from Anansi about while you are thinking of being cunning, how are you using that cunning process to improve yourself? Not necessarily being selfish to steal from the nation. So I think there are people who have achieved some level of development in other countries, and that they may be Ghanaians. But because of documentation purpose, they have sworn allegiance to those nations as well. And we should be able to give the opportunity for them to come and also help us to improve our system.
Okay.
Because, in fact, the bonus is that while they are coming, they are also coming with that behavior improvement. And therefore, they will be able to help us to be able to develop much better. So than we restricting it to ourselves alone, and then we have not got...
Perhaps it is a move to ensure that we learn our own lessons and not from other people's injuries. Okay, let's see. The Supreme Court didn't only rule on that. There was also another ruling on the spousal payment of our first ladies, first and second ladies, and that also came out yesterday. Some have argued that they are already enjoying some benefits of the state, and so rewarding them in terms of pay or paying them to be first and second ladies would be one that would increase the cost on our national kitty. Mr. Kusi, do you buy into that, and do you agree with the Supreme Court for calling that unconstitutional?
The payment is unconstitutional.
Yes, the Supreme Court pronounced yesterday. Let me take the story quickly, and then I'll give you the opportunity to express a view or two on that. According to the Apex Court, the approval is inconsistent with the 1992 Constitution, since the First Lady and the wife of the Vice President do not fall under public office holders. Going forward, this follows a suit filed against the Attorney General in July 2021 by the Bono Regional Chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Kwame Bafo, popularly known as Abronye. Among the other things, the NPP chairman was seeking a declaration that per Article 71(1) and to the positions of the ladies do not fall under the categories of public office holders. And so this was the premise on which the Supreme Court pronounced that judgment, that perhaps this, as it is, does not come under office holders of the state. That pronouncement, does it therefore invalidate the position of the first and second ladies, perhaps make it any less an office?
It doesn't invalidate it, it doesn't make it any less an office. But the clear fact is that they are not public offices. If we have to pay first and second ladies, then we should be paying the
chief directors,
the MP's wives and the whatever. So I think
any other article, one of this holder,
your spouse must be paid.
Sure.
I don't think it's proper, and I think that the Supreme Court was right.
It's a call in the right direction.
Call in the right direction.
Prof.
Well, yeah, I will agree with Mr. Kusi, because if they approve it, we will set up a precedence. And now, once it trickles down from the president and the vice president's wife, the MP's wife will enjoy. Every
and then chief directors,
every office chief directors' wives, everybody. And again, I've been given a job by KNUST. I'm paid.
Yes.
Who has given a job to the first lady and the second lady? They are just to support their husbands.
Okay.
It's nobody
like
has
appointed.
My wife supports me.
Sure.
So it behoves on me to find employment for my wife. It's not the state that should be paying my wife. So
in any case, I've observed over the years how first and second ladies, immediately their husbands take office, they set up foundations involved in every other and all sorts. But then right after their term of office, you don't hear anything again about their foundations. Shouldn't that also be considered, and perhaps some stipend is thrown at them? Mr. Kusi?
I do not think so.
Whoa.
I do not think so. Once you have your NGOs or whatever, you are doing your own thing. Like everybody else is also trying to do something. You are doing your thing.
Sure.
But if you are, whatever you are doing is subsisting on maybe your government, your husband's office, then when your husband leaves office, definitely your organization will collapse. But if you are on your own, if your organization is worth its salt, the change of office of your husband should not affect the organization. You are an NGO, you are running mother and child, you are running whatever. Continue running the mother and child.
Sure.
Because NGOs are presumed to have been sponsored or financed by donations and other things. I don't see why the donations should cease when your husband leaves office.
Maybe the donations were riding on the backs of the popularity of their husbands. Prof, don't you agree?
It may be so, but I also think that even though the Supreme Court has made a pronouncement, we should rethink. We don't necessarily have to have their portfolio captured in Constitution before we can find something for the First Lady and Second Lady to do. In fact, the people they are following are the first and second gentlemen of the country.
Yes.
And the Constitution protects them in so many ways. So we have to also be able to occupy their wives. So I think we should be able to set a proper portfolio, and if not call it a salary, we should call it something else that will be able to engage the first and second lady, so that it even will make, because nobody, so that husbands don't take office and they come and they just fold their arms and then they are just enjoying from their husband.
But those who don't agree with you, Prof, will say their offices already enjoy some kind of benefits of the state. They get given some budgets to run their offices anyway as first and second ladies. So why then should we worry with rewarding them with salaries?
Yeah, so make those packaged official.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you don't make it official, then you encourage corruption, because then anything can just be pumped into that and then they can be enjoying without accountability. But if you make it that official, then any first lady, anybody who comes into that office will know that this is a budget that I'm operating on.
Must our constitution capture everything we do?
Not necessarily constitutionally captured, but we can do something.
We can formalize or officialize.
We can formalize some of the activities, so that they don't just get up and go anywhere that they want to.
Great. Well, Ghana's education is back in the news, and Dr. Edichum, the minister in charge of education, has mentioned that there's going to be another change in the branding of our primary education, off the back of people saying the government is more focused on second cycle free SHS, and so the basic end is suffering a certain neglect. Let me go into the story, and then we can share or throw our views behind that. The Education Minister, Dr. Yao Edichum, has rolled out a new set of uniforms for basic school students as part of an initiative to rebrand education in Ghana. According to him, this is part of the rebranding efforts by the Education Ministry to enhance the image of public schools. He made this announcement during an unveiling ceremony presentation at the University of Professional Studies, UPSA, yesterday. Dr. Edichum said, you see, quote and unquote, you see, you don't see brown and yellow. We are rebranding public schools. No brown and yellow, blue and white, and we are changing the uniforms too, end quote. This is President Akufo-Addo and Vice President Bawumia's Ghana. And so indeed Dr. Edichum has pointed clearly that it is a directive not necessarily coming from his office, but also coming from above his office. Is it really about rebranding and changing it, or that we look at the very pertinent issues within the education, basic education level? Mr. Kusi?
You see, we are, as a nation, we seem to be joking with the upbringing of our young people.
That's a punch. Joking.
Joking, yes. The basic education is suffering so many critical things.
Like?
They lack so many critical things. If you look at the JSS, even when the curriculum was changed, there has been no textbooks for the children to be using.
Okay.
Over 4 years, yes. No textbook. People are graduating and moving on. What books did they use in graduation to move to say SHS or whatever? These are critical things that we must be addressing, and that when the higher officers take pride in this type of fanfare, I am disturbed.
You call that fanfare?
It's a fanfare.
Really?
Because if you're education minister, you implement an education policy, it's a matter of your usual, your day-to-day activity.
Okay.
You are saying that we're going to have a new uniform. It has been agreed by all the stakeholders. That should be ended. It shouldn't be a fanfare where we are going to say that it's coming from the president and the vice president office and all those things. So as a minister, don't you have a mandate to deliver on? You are delivering your mandate. Whether you are president or the director or whatever, it is your mandate.
Your mandate, yeah.
President did not direct you in anything outside your mandate. It's within your mandate. So you are working. So why this fanfare?
Prof, should it be more about fixing the basic cracks within the basic or first level cycle education, or that, as Mr. Kusi had just said, we should forget about the pump and pageantry and get to work?
I think he's totally right. While this may be a directive from the president or from the government, what is wrong about the uniform that we are wearing now? What does the colors mean? The new one that we are bringing, what exactly does the color portray? What metrics does it add to the education?
I sometimes get confused when I see school children. I wonder where they belong, really.
Yeah, because, well, we want to make sure that if you are in primary, you are in primary, so the uniforms can identify you. If you are in secondary, so we want to make those identifications. But again, this morning I listened to a talk by Simon Sinek on whatever you are doing, what metrics are you attaching that makes an impact?
Okay.
Are we really looking at it that way, or is it just a fanfare, as he's saying, just changing uniforms? And what is the cost? Could that cost have been put into the curriculum or content or the actual training of the children? So we should look beyond just popularization. Some of the ideas may be very good, but with new uniform, what is the color adding, and where will it take us?
Yeah.
This is where I'm looking at.
Okay. Mr. Kusi, let me bring you in here. The beautiful story in the Bible where Mary Magdalene is said to have brought an alabaster box and broken it and washed the feet of Jesus and wiped by her hair. Judas chastising her for doing so, and why not selling that to feed the poor. Jesus said, the poor you have always with you, but I am here temporarily and you will not have me again. Could we also not ascribe the same principle to what the education minister had just said, that look, we need to rebrand, so it doesn't matter really if there are schools under trees or there are no textbooks or there's no curriculum. Look, that will be a problem every day, but rebranding must go on
temporary. And that we should do that because he will go after some time.
Sure.
I don't think whatever he's using, whatever resource he's using to do that is coming from his pocket.
No.
It's from the nation's kitty. And if we abuse our national purse in this way, then where are we taking the nation to?
You think that is abuse?
Yes. You are going to burden parents and those the caretakers.
But in his view, that is also the rebranding will encourage more parents who shy away from public schools and look for other alternatives to educate their children.
Why are parents shying away from public schools? What is the state of the public schools that parents are shying away from? The schools that parents are looking for, what's the difference between those schools and the public schools? That's where our attention should be. What is stopping from bringing our public schools to the level of those schools that people are looking for? To the Ghana International and those things. Well, can't we raise our schools to those levels?
There are two sides that you can look at this.
Okay.
One, poverty levels are very high in our system. And when we were kids, there were times where some of us went to school and even our pants, the bottoms
had holes in them.
They had holes. So maybe the government is trying to meet the needs of the poor in society by providing, if the uniforms are going to be provided by government for free, like those days you used to go and pick uniforms at the end of the year and then you go to school. If those were objective, investing so that the children will have peace of mind to go and learn, like in the girl education, giving the part. it's able to give them confidence so that this time they don't have their menstrual cycle and then they have to stay home.
Sure.
Now they know that they have the pass. So if we are doing those kinds of investment in that way, but if it is just about rebranding for the sake of the fact that because I'm in government I have to do it my way, or this is what I want to do, I don't think that is progressive enough. We must have a developmental agenda, and each of them, as I'm saying, there should be some metrics, they should be measurable, and then what are we adding? So these are my views.
Right. You're still watching GTV Breakfast. My guests are Professor, let me get the name right. My guests are Professor Jacob Alhassan, Hamidu, Associate Professor, Department of Animal Science, Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, and Mr. Anthony Kusi, a retired economist, university lecturer, and a farmer. And this morning they've been sharing their views on stories making the headlines. You're watching us live from the Menchia Palace, and those you were hearing were our friends, the Royal Peacocks, who we've done the show with ever since we started, all the way from Monday. My name is Darrell Alantego, and we're moving on to have a quick look at our next story. And our next story is coming from you can also follow us on social media, all social platforms as @GTV Ghana, and your messages can be shared on WhatsApp 05555561034 05555561034, and that's how you can reach us. Share your thoughts and your views on the stories we've touched on. We've touched on the Education Ministry's unveiling of a new school uniform. We've also talked about the pronouncements by the Supreme Court on the remuneration of first ladies, the second ladies, as well as Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman's outdooring yesterday, who made a direct call to the EC to be transparent. We're also going to be looking at a report by the KPMG, which was handed over to the president, and on that the president has asked SML to get back to work. Prof, there was so much fury over that breaking story by the Fourth Estate as to the actual work of SML, who in view of the story breakers, SML was not necessarily delivering what it purports or says it was mandated to deliver, and so that warranted a certain investigation into their activities, and then eventually a report by KPMG. The report is out. President says they can go back to work. Is that where it ends, or this calls for a further monitoring of their activities, really, to ensure that perhaps off the back of the story, and given that they are cleared, they won't go out of their way to do worse?
Okay, one, KPMG, what is the trust level that we have in them in the country? I think we have so much confidence in them. In most auditing of issues, we always refer to them. So what did KPMG say? I always say that
they made quite a good number of recommendations. Maybe let me quickly go into one of their recommendations and see about 7 different major recommendations. Let me quickly look for it.
But there were recommendations, but it is not about finding them, finding SML culpable of
any wrongdoing,
unconstitutional. Exactly.
Okay. Yes, so some of the recommendations KPMG made, let me come to number 1. Whoa, bear with me. So on the back of the KPMG findings, the president has directed that an upstream audit, okay, so that was what happened, and then a upstream audit should be, let me turn this phone is playing up. I'm unable to sure, good. Yes. So this is it. 1, the president has accepted the recommendations of KPMG and directs as follows. The upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit services have not yet been commenced, and no payments have been made in respect of those services. Therefore, they may be terminated. However, given that the upstream petroleum audit and minerals audit services could prevent significant revenue leakages, the president has directed that the ministry and the Ghana Revenue Authority conduct a comprehensive technical needs assessment, value for money assessment, and stakeholder engagement before implementing such services.
Yes, so you could see that the recommendations have been accepted by the president.
Sure.
And he's giving further instructions as to how things should be done. Now,
but why were these not done in the first place, since they are part of the requirements?
Well, if you give me any document today, I will still be able to make recommendation, even though you may have implemented it.
Okay.
So the initial drafters, it's not everybody's view that they could source. And Fourth Estate taking that whole matter up was also an important subject for the country.
Sure.
Remember, the president has asked us to be citizens. So they did their job as citizens, but that does not necessarily mean that you should take the job away from SML, because I don't know if there are any judgment debt issue or anything, but maybe they could do a better job as well. And therefore, adding the recommendation could make their job even much easier.
I think and more recommendations, there would have been some judgment debt if the whole deal has been called off.
Exactly. So we should always be thinking on each side of the coin. We should not just be focused about our interests alone. So the president is thinking about the country while also thinking about whatever reports were brought by Fourth Estate, and they are all win-win for the country.
Okay, so let's bring Mr. Kusi in.
I want to find out.
Okay.
Beyond the petroleum and mineral upstream monitoring, what again was the SML supposed to be doing?
Okay. Well, we can always refer to the document. We can always refer to the document, and the first was to monitor, and the second is the transaction audit and external price verification services may also be terminated. According to KPMG's findings, GRA obtained partial value or benefit for those services. And so they may be going ahead to do the monitoring and revenue leakage monitoring, and so maybe that's what they're going to go on.
And that's beside the upstream
minerals,
and they're going to go on with all that.
Sure.
And this is beyond the scope of GRA. GRA cannot monitor. GRA cannot verify external prices. We duplicate institutional functions in a manner that will cause financial loss to the state. The engagement of the SML, personally, I think, was uncalled for.
I see.
There are statutory institutions that have been tasked to do some of these things.
Okay.
If we don't trust that those institutions, it's a matter of we making changes in the institutions and not bringing another body to come and hang over that institution. Because if you are going to be monitoring all the GRA department that was supposed to be engaged in this price monitoring and all those things, they are still there.
Yes.
We are paying them. And then we bring SML to come and do the same that these people were doing. And they will also get some pay for whatever that they'll be doing.
So you think...
Prof earlier said that we should be trusting our own people.
But is it there?
Yeah. So that if we don't trust our people, let's move them, let's sack them, bring SML to come and do it. But we keep them, we pay them, and the SML is also coming to do the same work, and they'll also be paid.
Well, I think GRA cannot be their own referee. They are the ones who are collecting the revenue. But there should be an independent monitoring body, which I feel, because maybe the quantum of revenue that is going to come out of this whole revenue collection, if even 1% is lost to the country, it's going to be a huge amount of money.
Yes.
Compared to the amount of money invested in SML to go and do the monitoring, it may end up being profitable for the country.
Okay.
But and we see it in our institutions in the country, that you trust them to do things, and at the end of the day, monies that are even invested, they return debt.
Wow.
And
they come back rather as debt and not revenue.
Exactly.
I see.
So
I see.
It is simply because we don't sanction. We don't apply sanctions.
Okay. Okay.
Elsewhere, when you breach the service that you breach, either you may even have to resign or you'll be sanctioned.
Yes.
But here, people sit there for donkey years, nobody does anything to them.
I see. Unfortunately, we cannot answer calls on our WhatsApp line, and so if you have any view to share with us, please use our WhatsApp handle 05555561034 05555561034, and we will read your message accordingly. Let me take some messages. This is coming from Kusi. Kusi has this to say. Please keep it short as well. If they're overly long, we may not be able to read it out. Professor Nana Jane Opoku, to restore dignity of the vice presidency, you say. What is the import of the assertion? The statement clearly manifests Mahama, Kwame and Misa were shameful vice presidents. That's your view. Thank you very much. Let's move on to the next, and we're unable to answer calls on this number, so please bear with us and allow us read messages only on this WhatsApp number. Alhaji Dauda has this to say. Alhaji Dauda, good morning. Congratulations to GTV Breakfast Show team for the 3 days live transmission from Kumasi. As we welcome the new school uniform by the Education Minister, the news update has not told the Ghanaian public that it's the Education Ministry to supply the uniform to all Ghanaians. That is also a question Alhaji Dauda is asking from Medina Estate. And then we have Al-Sina. For me, I think it's inappropriate for the first ladies to be receiving salaries as a developing country. I think their husbands have enough to cater for them. My humble opinion. I am Al-Sina from Koforidua. Let's continue, and we're taking another one from Osankide. Osankide says Ghanaians should be very careful with all the cheap propaganda and lies from JDM and his running mate against Dr. Mahamudu Bahumia's, is it ideology or ideology you want to say? NDC has nothing good to offer us except to create loot and share our hard-earned taxpayers' money for themselves. That's Osankide's view from Taifa. And the next is Eric K. Bodi. Eric K. Bodi has this to say. Former President JDM can choose World Women's President. Still, we will vote against them because they don't have any better thing to offer Ghanaians again. Say no to JDM. If we allow JDM and the NDC to come again, our children will never give us. And you ended there. Your message is incomplete. Please resend, and I will reread. The next one, your advertisement that was Alhaji Quench. What has that done so far? We want to read your messages, but please make it quite open so we can understand. Alhassan Cisse from Zenu Central. Good morning to you all. Prof. Jane Nana Opoku, my speech was the hard truth and is inspiring, and I find hope in that speech. Thank you very much. I urge all Ghanaians to let come together to vote massively for His Excellency John Dramani Mahama to rescue our country from total collapse. My warm regards to His Excellency. Okay, I'm sorry, I know only two excellencies at the moment, and so I will end it there. Ko-Mensa Pilatu Domi. Co-Mensa Pilatu Domi Kwabenya constituency. Special greetings to lawyer Michael Kwe Jr., aka Gabo, our next MP for Domi Kwabenya constituency. Thank you very much, you said. And we go to Ayepe. We need education here, please. Is Otumfo Abebio. In Akan, a chief is referred to as Abebio when that chief has been once upon the time the stool and reinstated. That chief is referred to as Abebio. Otumfo had not ever vacated the golden stool for reinstatement and cannot be referred to as a babio. I am unable to comment on this. I'll get Openi Safo Kantanka to help when the time is right. Let me take 2 or 3 more messages. And this is coming from Ni Abeku. Abeku is Ni Fanti. Really? Okay. Please, how much is the new branding going to cost? You need to speak to Professor Educhum. You're asking GTV this. Speak to Professor Educhum. Let's go to J. With respect, the professor's temperament today is not appropriate for TV. Really? Kwame from Sejimase. Sejimase Kwame, really? Are you attacking my guests? What have they done? Which of the professors are you referring to? I've mentioned more than one professor today, and I have one as my guest. If you find anything you're displeased with about my guest, please attack me, address me appropriately. But I beg of you, don't take it up on my guests. They are guests. Wow, I am locked to GTV. Good show from our guests. They remind me of Sheikh and Rev. Awesome. You are doing good. You are actually being compared to Sheikh and Rev, who are our normal Thursday guests, and that's great. That's really very great. Thank you very much. As they say it, good. Thank you. And then let me go to another one, maybe my last message, perhaps. Good morning, GTV, for your good works. Let's welcome the new school uniform. My name is Isaac Dunu, watching from Malawi live. Whoa. Thank you very much, and keep watching GTV Breakfast. You may also send your message on 0555561034, 0555561034, and you may follow us also on all social media platforms at GTV Ghana. Good morning. Rebranding uniforms will not in any way benefit our educational system. It does not matter what they are wearing if what our children are absorbing mentally doesn't amount to anything. Based on what we have been told over and over again, the country apparently has a limited money, a reason why we are all suffering. So why wouldn't the minister invest in more important things like textbooks? Jackie or Jacqueline from Dansuman sends this. Thank you very much. And finally, let me take Daniel's message. Finally, please, when you were in Accra, you invited NDC and Evers, and in Kumasi, still you are in. Daniel, how many times did I call your name? Please, you may comment, but be objective and don't be subjective. Thank you very much. Keep watching GTV Breakfast. Have a good day. And so coming back to the studio where my guest Professor Alhassan and Mr. Kusi are still seated with me. We're going to also perhaps look back on some of the running stories for today and take 1 or 2 more, and then we will draw the curtains to an end. President, let's say, Traders Lord free SHS policy for bridging education inequality gap. And, well, I'm unsure what part of the free SHS traders have lauded or applauded, but in your view, Mr. Kusi, the free SHS policy, albeit a very good one, has it lived up to the bill?
Well, I must say that the free SHS idea is a very good one. It's good for a developing country like Ghana. Mm-hmm. We may have a whole lot of implementation problems and resource constraints, but the free SHS is a good idea that going forward, I think we should take steps to address the identified deficiencies so that we can improve it and make it more beneficial to the nation. So the idea, the policy is quite good. It was envisioned in the Constitution where it was said that it must be implemented progressively as and when the economic circumstances improve, so that we do it bit by bit. But the current president was bold enough to move it at one go. It was an audacious move. But then, some people would think that they did not think through it very well. But that move alone also exposed a lot of the deficiencies that we are now talking about. If we are not gone that way, we will be going by the step by step. We may not have seen some of them. But now with this bold move, where all the things have been laid bare, and then we should begin addressing them as a way of improving the free SHS. So to me, the policy is a very good one.
Prof. Yes, I'm one of the people for the free SHS.
Sure.
But as Mr. Kusi said, there are bottlenecks that needs to be addressed. I have been expecting that by now the minister would have called a stakeholder consultation to rethink where we are going. While the policy is excellent, we have to continue implementing it. If not at all, like every year, there should be some review aspect. We should be bold to be able to do the review than continue with the same thing for a whole 10 years or so, and not that there will be a lot of resource loss. If we are to really implement it very well, it will really open up market for even the traders. Because the fact that you are boarding a lot of students means that the market women will have a lot of sales of maize, sales of commodity, and therefore it to move the country forward. We should think through it with a value chain mindset, not just the free education, the fact that we have just implemented free education and just it ends there.
Okay, maybe we should take one more story on revenue raising by the GRA, and the GRA says resident persons risk prosecution for failure to disclose incomes, and this is coming off the back of a recent move to ensure resident Ghanaians who earn some income abroad must disclose and also make appropriate payments in terms of taxation. Really, must it be prosecution, or that it's about time we rethink our approaches to revenue raising in terms of taxation? Mr. Kusi.
Yeah, I think the GRA has failed in its revenue mobilization arrangement. For instance, they could have emphasized on filing of tax returns. If we were to file their tax, both domestically and those outside, at the end of this year, I made so much. These are my expenditure. File the tax. You get to know how much a person is earning and how much income tax a person will have to pay. I don't know of a Ghanaian here who has filed a tax return to GRA before. Apart from those who are on the government people who you can readily assess their incomes and then tax them, get the income tax at source. A lot of people are earning huge incomes that are not taxed, all because they don't file their tax returns. I would have expected that you can even bring it to the lowest level where the SMEs, micro and small business, should be filing. We move it to the bigger entities, and then individual citizens will have to be filing their tax returns. And through this, we will know who is earning what and how much income tax we can take from the person. So that is my take on that. They should emphasize on filing of tax returns.
Right, Prof.
Yeah, for me, must GRA really come out before they can implement some of these ideas? And that is at some point the failure that we have in this country. Everybody wants to be heard before they start doing what they are mandated to do. And so I will just end it there. That whether to tax residents who are earning, I don't think they should be making noise about it. We should see them getting the work done. And that also goes to other avenues that they could generate taxes without having to tell us.
Wow. And so for you, it is not really about what not the calm before the storm or the storm before the calm. What matters to you is get to work,
deliver on your mandate.
Exactly.
And your work will speak for you.
Exactly.
I see. Okay, so just before I wrap, you have been watching GTV Breakfast, and my guest for the headlines this morning has been Professor Jacob Alhassan Hamidu, who is Associate Professor, Department of Animal Science, KNUST, and Mr. Dr. Anthony Kusi, an economist, retired university lecturer, and a farmer. My name is Darrell Alan Tego, coming to you from the Menchia Palace in Kumasi. Remember, we're still doing 25 years anniversary celebration of Otikoko, so Otumfuo Seitutu the second, who this week is celebrating the 25-year reign on the Sikajwa Kofi. Keep watching GTV Breakfast. Stick and stay with us. Coming up next is a discussion my sister Denta is going to moderate, and that will be one second, recounting the 25 years journey from being Bema Koku Duya to Asante Otumfuo Osei Tutu the second.